ever find yourself in a conversation, mind goes blank, and suddenly like you've forgotten how English
happens to the best of us.
Right. It can be so frustrating. But you know what? We are diving into this guide called How to Have Spontaneous Conversations in English. And I think it's really going to help because we're going to ditch that whole like deer in the headlights feeling.
Right.
And actually like start to enjoy chatting in English.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed about this guide is how it kind of like reframes fluency.
Okay.
It's not about, flawlessly reciting grammar rules from a textbook.
Right.
It's about, being able to confidently navigate a conversation in real time.
Yeah.
Even with a few stumbles here and there. It's more authentic that way.
And I think that's such a good point because it's like sometimes you just got to like go for it for sure.
Even if you don't have that like perfect word or, that perfect phrase lined up.
Yeah. And the guide even suggests that, like, instead of getting, like, really hung up on finding that perfect synonym, which can totally derail a conversation. You can just be like, this, like this, and then just explain your idea in a way that, like, everyone can understand.
Totally. And that reminds me of something else that the guide emphasizes, which is, like, this idea of active listening.
Oh, for sure.
And it sounds kind of basic.
Yeah.
But they frame it in a way that's like, wow, this is actually, like, a superpower for being able to have a spontaneous conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about, like being polite. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm listening.
Right. It's really about unlocking this deeper understanding and keeping that conversation flowing smoothly.
And when you're really like tuned in to what someone's saying, like not just the words, but their tone, their body language, you start to pick up on these nuances and then you respond authentically.
Yes.
And then the conversation just becomes way more engaging.
Totally. And the guide even suggests that, sometimes when you're not sure what to say next, you can even summarize what the other person just said before adding your own thoughts. So it's like, okay, so I hear you saying this, and that makes me think this.
Yeah, it's such a simple,
it's so simple,
yet effective technique.
Yes.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
By taking a moment to kind of reflect and paraphrase what they said, you're showing the other person that you're present, you're invested in the conversation.
Right, you're really listening.
Which naturally just leads to a more like enjoyable exchange,
I love that because it's like you're building this like conversational bridge.
Exactly.
Instead of just like launching into your own thoughts. Now this next tip I have to say really intrigued me.
Okay.
The guide talks about building what they call a bank of common phrases.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought this was so interesting. It's sort of like having this like go-to toolkit for those moments.
Right.
When maybe your brain decides to like take a vacation.
Yeah.
And you're like, what am I going to say?
It's like writer's block, but for conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they're suggesting like...
So what kind of phrases are we talking about here?
Yeah, so they're saying, like, imagine having this, like, mental library of phrases for, like, simple things like greetings, transitions, asking for clarification.
Oh, I like it.
It's like having these preloaded responses that just help you, like, navigate all those little conversational speed bumps with ease.
I love that.
And I was thinking about this, and I was like, it would make me feel so much more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
If I had those like in my back pocket. Because I wouldn't be so worried about like freezing up.
Hold on.
It's like instead of panicking about what to say next, you can just rely on these trusty phrases to kind of like bridge the gap and keep that conversation flowing.
I'm into it.
It's like having those pre-chopped ingredients,
Yeah, totally.
Like ready to go.
Like on those cooking shows.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
And I was thinking about like, having these phrases at your fingertips could really...
it could totally like streamline the whole conversation process for sure.
Streamline, yes. Oh, that's a good word. Yeah. Speaking of keeping things flowing, I thought the guide had a really kind of a refreshing take, actually, on those little conversational hiccups we all have,
Yeah.
Like those filler words, like the ums and the ahs that like... we're always told to get rid of.
Oh, 100%.
Like banish them from our vocabulary.
Right. Like, don't you dare say or
No. But you know what? This guide actually argues that those little hesitations
are actually like a totally normal part of spoken English.
Interesting.
Like everyone does it. It's about kind of embracing those imperfections.
Right.
And realizing that like even even native speakers, you know?
Yeah.
They use them all the time.
So it's more about just like sounding natural than trying to be like this, perfect robot person.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, the guide actually even says that.
Okay.
Like trying too hard to get rid of those filler words can actually make you sound like stiff and unnatural.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's like you're trying too hard to be perfect.
Right.
And then you just end up sounding like a robot.
That's such a good point.
It's like almost like overcompensating in a way.
Yes. Exactly. It's like, I'm trying too hard not to do that. Yeah. And now I sound weird.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like trying to avoid using contraction.
Yeah.
Like, like cannot instead of can't.
That's a good example. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we get it, grammar.
Right.
But it sounds a little strange.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so this is all about like giving yourself permission to be like a human. Even though you're speaking in like, another language, which is really freeing when you think about it.
It is.
Because it's like we put so much pressure on ourselves. So like, gotta get it right.
Yeah.
And I love how this kind of like takes that pressure off.
It does.
And that actually kind of ties into another point that the guide makes, which is about getting comfortable with silence.
Oh, interesting.
And this one really resonated with me. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we feel this like need to fill every
gap.
Yes. Every gap, every silence in a conversation.
Yeah. Like dead air is like the enemy of a good conversation.
Right. And it's like, gotta keep talking.
Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a second to think.
Totally. Or even to just like process what the other person said.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think in those moments, we tend to like rush in to fill that space when actually just like taking a beat can actually make the conversation more meaningful.
It can. And sometimes it's like, that saying like, it's the silences that speak the loudest?
Yes, 100%.
Sometimes it's like that, where it's like if you just like give it a beat.
They can actually be really powerful.
Totally. And it allows the other person to kind of like, jump in if they want to, or if they need to like add something.
Yes. And it shows that you're like actually listening and thinking about
Totally. It's not just like waiting for your turn to talk. You're actually like, okay, let me digest that for a second.
Yes.
And then we can continue.
And sometimes it's in those quiet moments that like the most profound insights come out.
I agree.
Like I've had conversations with people where we've just been like quiet for a minute.
Right.
And then one of us will say something and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
It's like the magic happens in the silence sometimes.
I know, right? It's like we need to give ourselves permission to just be...
To be present.
To be present and be quiet.
100%.
Now, remember that tip about paraphrasing?
Yeah.
I thought this was so interesting.
Okay.
Because they were also saying that this is a really great tool for when you're in that situation where maybe you don't quite understand what the other person is saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Or maybe you can't find the right words yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a safety net.
Yes.
For those brain freeze moments.
Yes, it's like a brain freeze safety net.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hold on, my brain's not working.
Totally.
But I want to stay in this conversation. Yeah. So let me just repeat back what I think I heard.
Right. Yeah, it's just a way to make sure you're on the same page.
Exactly.
Like, so are you saying...
Yes.
Okay, so you're saying...
Oh, yes. This is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's a really good way to kind of like... show the other person that you're, engaged, that you're listening.
Yes.
That you care.
Exactly.
That you're trying to understand, even if you're not quite there yet.
It's like that, it's that idea of like, I'm with you, even if I need a little help connecting the dots.
Exactly. And that's so important.
Yeah.
Because it shows that you're present, you're invested.
Right.
You're not just like, oh, I'm lost, I'm out of here.
Right, exactly.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
Yeah, it's like, I'm here, I'm present, I'm with you.
Exactly.
Help me get there.
Yeah.
And I think that makes such a difference in a conversation.
Oh, 100%, for sure.
Because it's like, we all have those moments.
Yeah, for sure.
Where our brain just like...
Takes a little vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, instead of letting that like derail the whole conversation, it's like, okay, let's use this as an opportunity to like clarify and connect.
Totally. It's a way to like, kind of like get back on track,
Yes.
Instead of just like letting the conversation completely fall apart.
Yes. Exactly. It's like we're building those conversational bridges again, right?
Exactly. And, the guide wraps up with something that's, I think, really important.
Okay.
And it's practice, practice, practice.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, for any skill, right? Practice is key. But I'm curious, how do they suggest we practice something?
That's the thing.
Like as spontaneous conversation. Right.
Because it's like, how do you practice,
Right.
being spontaneous?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think it gets really interesting because they encourage us to look for what they call like these low stakes practice opportunities.
Low stakes practice. Okay.
Yeah, nice.
What does that even look like?
So it could be anything from like, just like striking up a conversation with, the cashier at the grocery store or like, joining a language exchange group online.
Right.
It's really about like creating these environments where you don't feel a ton of pressure.
Right.
To be perfect.
Right, where you can like experiment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can try new phrases, you can make mistakes, and you're not going to feel like, oh my gosh, everyone's judging me.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's like a safe space to just like...
to play.
Exactly.
With the language, yeah.
Exactly.
I love that. So it's about like taking those everyday interactions and like turning them into these like mini opportunities.
Totally.
To grow.
Yes. Like, even if it's just 5 minutes, like you're at the coffee shop, you're ordering a coffee.
Right.
Instead of just like, mumbling your order.
Right. Just like, can I get a latte? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually try to like, maybe ask the barista how their day's going.
Right.
Or like, make a comment about the weather.
Oh, yeah. Just like a little something.
Exactly. Just something. Exactly. Just to kind of like flex those conversational muscles,
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And the guide even mentions like this idea of like almost like role playing certain scenarios.
Oh, that's a good
one. With like a language partner.
Yeah, totally.
Or a friend.
Totally. Like imagine.
And I thought this was such a good idea.
Yeah.
It's like imagine practicing like how to order food in a restaurant.
Totally. Or like how to ask for directions.
Yes.
If you're lost.
And it's like you can do all this before you're even in that situation.
Exactly. It's like a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
For like real life conversations.
Oh, I love that. It's like a dress rehearsal for real life. Exactly. It's like those simulations that like pilots use.
Yes.
To prepare for like different flying conditions.
100%.
And it's like you get to like practice in this like safe, controlled environment.
Yeah.
And then when you're actually in that situation, you've already kind of like,
You've been there.
You've done that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is so helpful.
It makes such a difference.
It does.
It's like anything else.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the more comfortable you become.
Right.
And I think that brings us back to, like one of the biggest takeaways from this whole guide.
Okay.
Which is this idea of like shifting our mindset.
Okay.
From perfection to progress.
Ooh, I like that. Okay.
Because so often, especially when we're learning a language, we can get so caught up in like,
I gotta get it right.
I
don't want to make a mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, that can really hold us back.
It does.
Because it prevents us from actually like,
growing.
From growing.
Yes.
From putting ourselves out there.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like, this guy is really saying like, it's okay to make mistakes.
It's okay.
Like embrace those oops moments.
Yes.
Because those are actually like valuable learning opportunities.
It's so true. It's like every time you make a mistake, you're like that much closer to
getting it right.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes sometimes.
I agree.
So it's all about like embracing that journey.
Yes. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yes. I love that.
It's about like enjoying the process of learning and growing.
Totally. And like celebrating those little victories.
Exactly.
Along the way.
Yes. Because, like even if you stumble over a word or you don't quite say something perfectly.
Right.
The fact that you're putting yourself out there, you're trying.
That you're trying, yeah.
Like, that in itself is a huge accomplishment.
It is.
And I think like we need to celebrate those moments more.
We do. We need to give ourselves more credit.
Exactly. Like be kind to yourself.
Yes.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's not going to happen overnight.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there you have it. Another deep dive.
I like it.
Into the world of language learning.
I feel like we need like a little outro music, like something really dramatic.
I know. But yeah.
I think this was really good.
I think so too. And it's like we've talked about how to like ditch that fear of like being perfect. We've talked about like how to embrace those moments where we're like,
moments.
The moments, yeah.
We all have them.
Exactly. And like how to turn those like everyday interactions into opportunities to like grow.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
I love that, yeah.
And I think that's really what it's all about, right?
It is. It's about like, not letting the fear of making mistakes hold us back from actually like connecting with other people.
Yes. Because ultimately, that's what language is for.
Exactly.
It's to connect
with other humans.
It's to build relationships.
It is.
It's to share experiences.
It's so true.
And so, yeah, I think that's a really beautiful thing to keep in mind.
It is. And like, you said it before, but I think it's worth repeating.
Fluency isn't about being perfect.
It's not about perfection.
It's about
connection.
It's about connection.
It's about communication.
It's about like getting your point across in a way that like, is understandable and that like, helps you build those relationships and have those experiences.
And that's what makes it fun.
Exactly. That's what makes it fun.
Like if you're not having fun, what's the point?
I know. Exactly. So like, as we like wrap up this deep dive, I just want to say like, remember.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Yes.
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
And just keep practicing.
Keep practicing. And have fun.
Exactly.
Have fun.